Now, this week's Monday Night Raw was very much up against it after the really unfortunate news that WWE Champion Mr. Daddy Drew McIntyre himself has gone and got the COVID. My thoughts and all of our thoughts here at Cultaholic are with you, Daddy Drew. Get better soon. But after that unfortunate announcement last night, it meant that last night's episode of Monday Night Raw had to be rewritten at the very last possible second, even though that happens every single pissing week. But this week, they couldn't help it, which made things more difficult. Or something. But even still, what we saw, it was a load of pish, as we had not one, but two matches repeat themselves. How could one match repeat itself, Ross? We saw Jeffrey, James, Cuthbert, Hardy taking on Jaxson, Ryker, and then shenanigans, and then taking on Elias, and then we saw, Riddle. He took on Lashley, and then some shenanigans, and then he took on MVP. They just repeated themselves on a night where Ric Flair was revealed to be Al Wilson. That's a sentence I never ever thought I'd have to say, by the way. And then we learned that Triple H does not actually stand for Hunter, Hearst, Helmsley. It actually stands for a hairy Harry Houdini. And he confirmed this by not only doing some magic, but he disappeared, We all know how Triple H speaks with an at the end of every pissing word. But I do wonder if Triple H did go to the same place that John Cena disappeared to after WrestleMania 36 last year. But I am Ross Twiddell from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are all your WTF moments from a really sort of but also a bit of a episode of Monday Night Raw. How Daddy Drew, hit the intro, will you? But we're kicking things off with Tom Phillips doing what Tom Phillips does best. He slides in those Instagram DMs a few long years ago and he face fornicates the poo out of a line on WWE commentary. And I quote, "After a troubling Raw Legends night," you can say that again, Tom. "And I still cannot comprehend the fact that we live in a world where one singular company, they can put on Raw Legends Night all the way down here, and on the same week, put on NXT and put on an episode of SmackDown, which were both just as fantastic as each other. How can one be so bad consistently compared to the other two, which are by and large good consistently?" Oh yeah, 3 hours as compared to 2. So then we had a really weird thing, as we had the Executive Vice President of Global Talent Strategy and Development, otherwise known as Eyeball Paul, otherwise known as Triple H, the hairy Harry Houdini, although at this point in the night, we didn't know that yet. So it's just Triple H, isn't it? But this man with a very important and very long title, he appeared on international broadcast television to let Randall Keith know that he's very proud of Randall Keith, and he's happy that Randall Keith murdered a co-worker. And I was thinking to myself, that was definitely a best for business thing to do there, Eyeball Paul, because no doubt about it, after the shareholders, the stocks, all that money stuff, after they heard the Executive Vice President of Global Talent Strategy and Development say that he was proud of Randall Keith murdering a co-worker, the stock prices must have plummeted, surely. And then Triple H doubled down on this praise for Randy Orton, which is yet another WTF moment within the context I've just outlined in the point before. He said he would have done the exact same as Randall Keith, because in Triple H's opinion, Randall Keith saw what stood in front of him. Randall Keith murdered the thing that was in front of him, and that was good, because it benefited Randall Keith Orton. And since Triple H was definitely a babyface when Raw kicked off last night, kids, I've got a message for you on behalf of Triple H. I'm William Regal now. And that is, children, if somebody in your class at school has something you want, don't take any poo from them. Stab them in the face. Kill them. Go on. Murder them. It's fine, because Triple H said so. You can have their pick and mix and or fidget spinner and also a life in prison. But it's fine, because Triple H said so. But then after all that, Triple H tells Randall Keith there are some things that Triple H he does not understand. First of all, Triple H does not understand how Randall Keith could kick a legend in the tête, which is French for head. He doesn't understand how Randall Keith could threaten these legends, humiliate these silly old men. Setting the Fiend on fire and killing the Fiend, that's tickety-boo in Triple H's world, but Randall Keith Orton going, ha ha, Mark Henry, you're on a scooter now. You used to be strong, but you're not quite as strong now because you are older, and that is the very concept of time. That's too far in Triple H's book. Now, Triple H tried to, do the old GCSE paper thing by showing his working out during the maths exam by saying that Randall Keith being disrespectful and humiliating these legends, that solidified in Triple H's mind that Randy Orton, you are a prick. As if the setting another man on fire and killing him didn't already do that. Triple H's priorities are weird, aren't they? And since it's the first time it ever happened, I've got to make it a WTF moment. For the first time ever, WWE have openly acknowledged and named a superstar of theirs who has got the COVID. And then not only that, but after announcing that Daddy Drew McIntyre has the COVID, once again, how Drew, we're all with your son, they did what they should have done. They got role model Daddy Drew McIntyre, WWE champion Drew McIntyre, and had him say how this COVID stuff, it's serious. If I can get it, you can get it too. Treat it very seriously indeed. Stop being an arsehole. Well done, WWE. Get well soon, Drew. And then we saw that utter bollocks there from Raw Legends Night, and I cannot believe it. Slap my arse and call me Gertrude. The commentary team was seriously asking, was this a mistake on Ric Flair's part? Did Ric Flair think that Charlotte Flair, his daughter, was actually Peyton Royce and trip up Charlotte Flair by mistake? Man, WWE, we all know Ric Flair is old, but that is taking the biscuit right out of his very old hand, man. We all know what happened here. Stop trying to cover it up. Ric Flair got cock blocked by his own daughter, and he got pissed off at his own daughter. We saw it with our own eyes, man. How could he have possibly mistaken Charlotte Flair for Peyton Royce? How is that a thing? Now, I'm not here to kink shame. You like what you like, and Lacey Evans made it very clear indeed that she likes Rickety Ric Flair. But I tell you what, dear viewer, it's a very good job indeed that WWE never ever made Lacey Evans' family at home, her husband and her lovely daughter, official canon within their WWE programming. Could you imagine if they told us all that Lacey Evans' daughter looks up to Lacey Evans, both literally and figuratively, as a role model? She must be so proud of her dear mother doing what she's doing now. And I'm saying this because, of course, on last week's Raw Legends, it just looked like Lacey Evans was using Ric Flair to play some mind games on Charlotte Flair. But this week, after the match, we were shown Lacey Evans and Ric Flair arm in arm walking backstage with Lacey Evans saying, I'm gonna get changed in the hotel room, meaning she probably rode Space Mountain. They went back to the hotel together, man. What do you think happened? It's Ric Flair. Woo! Her daughter must be proud once again. Oh dear. And a certain gimmick infringement Kane, who was back from being busy, otherwise known as I left him outside the studio and couldn't be asked to get him. The last time he was referenced here on WTF Moments. He let me know while I was watching Raw this morning that his taint, it was tickling. Look at that, everybody. It's a ticklish taint. When The Miz and John Morrison, they let us know that they were at last night's Raw to surprise and topple anyone who thinks they are untouchable. Just like a certain Doctor of Thugonomics, Gimmick Infringement Kane. Gimmick Infringement Kane, you are a genius. I know, mate. And I tell you what, it was lovely to see WWE have an art imitating life by confirming during last night's Raw that Jaxson Ryker is an idiot. And that's because before Elias took on Jeff Hardy, Elias looked at Jaxson Ryker, and Elias, with a wink and a nudge, was going, hey, don't you... Have I had a stroke? He was saying, don't get involved in my match, Jaxson Ryker. Definitely do not get involved in my match, before running down to the ring like a cheeky little school child. Elias said. But then after Elias was made to look a little bit stupid, because of course he is a professional wrestling heel, and that's okay sometimes, Ryker got in the ring and said to Elias, well, you did say do not get involved in the match. Ha ha ha. And I'm only making this a WTF moment because so many times I see so many people criticising WWE for not letting their superstars just be themselves with the volume turned up to 11. Jaxson Ryker, idiot outside the ring. Jaxson Ryker, idiot inside the ring. It's great to see. So, of course, we heard Triple H speaking to Randall Keith at the start of the night, where Triple H said to Randall Keith, you're smart enough to know that when somebody wants you to do something, you don't give them the satisfaction. There's no benefit in it, which of course was doing the wrestling match against Randall Keith for Triple H. There's no benefit in it for me. Randall Keith then did a bit of gimmick infringement on himself by doing a promo he did a long time ago indeed, by saying, hey Triple H, your bollocks, they are still in Lady Balls' purse. Why I order? Triple H said back to Randall Keith after Randall Keith said that to him. But then we fast forward a bit through the night and then we see this promo here from Triple H, and with what he said at the start of the show, fresh in the memory, he said, Randall Keith, you called some old men some bad names. I'm gonna kill you. What happened, Paul? So we go to commercial break, and those two there, they are a hugging and a kissing on the back row at the cinema, however that song goes. We then come back from commercial and seeing a couple of other things during the show, and they're fighting. And nobody at ringside who must have seen what was going on inside the ring, while us horrible fans, we were watching the commercials. We couldn't see what was happening. They weren't on the screen. Despite the fact the commentators must have seen what was happening inside the ring, they didn't fill us in. They didn't Craig David us. They didn't tell us what was going on. They were hugging, then they were fighting. What happened in between? And I go back to what I said at the start of the video. We have episodes of SmackDown with the Tribal Chief, some fantastic professional wrestling storytelling, Sami Zayn, stuff like this happening on SmackDown, Big E, all the stuff happens on SmackDown. Great storytelling, yet the same company can't even tell that story right. What happened between Keith and Sheamus? And I'm pretty sure at this point that every person and their dog and their dog's goldfish said that Goldberg's promo on last week's Raw, it made absolutely no sense whatsoever. But despite that, we saw a very long and very detailed replay of Goldberg's promo, which, by the way, didn't make any sense whatsoever. It was almost as if WWE said to themselves, well, some people might have missed last week's Raw, let's fill them in and tell them how much of a bleeding idiot Goldberg is here in the year 2021. I don't know about you at home, but if I was in charge of WWE, time constraints are not on last week's show, meaning that apparently Drew McIntyre was going to cut some sort of promo that could have been shown as part of the show due to the old time constraints. I'd have been brushing that crap, what we saw on last week's Raw, very much under the carpet, never to be spoken about ever again. But hey, at least they sort of turned this negative into a positive, with Daddy Drew McIntyre himself saying, hey Bill, you're an old idiot. It pains me to say this, I love Goldberg, it's why I'm stood here today. He said, you're putting words in my mouth, Goldberg. How the hell could you know what I was thinking? You're a silly old man. I'm going to kick your head off and prove you wrong at the Royal Rumble. At least they brought it back round a little bit. But during this promo, Daddy Drew McIntyre let us know that himself and his brother, they would watch Goldberg flatten men every single week. And in this moment, we learned that WWE's chosen one, WWE's WWE champion, was actually a WCW kid. Who could have seen that coming, eh? I didn't. That's why I made it a WTF moment. Riddle, get new gear, man, will you? But in this moment right here, the Lucha House Party told, Riddle, you watch your back, pal, as you prepare to fight Lashley from the Hurt Business, who, by the way, are a professional wrestling stable, and some more of them might attack you from the rear. But what, Riddle said in reply to the Lucha House Party, it made me take these two fingers here and shove them in my eyes really, really hard. And that's because, Riddle, he said that's physically impossible, bro. Do you go under your arms? Do you go under your legs? And that just had me thinking, imagine if a non-professional wrestling fan was flicking through the channels at this moment right here. They landed on Monday Night Raw. They saw that utter bollocks happening right there. You wouldn't have a new fan of professional wrestling, would you? You would have yet another person saying that us professional wrestling fans were horrible, horrible people. How can anybody like that? What's going on, man? He's a former UFC fighter, for goodness sake, WWE. Booking him should be the easiest person to book in the entire WWE. He's legitimate at the fighting. What? So then we're watching T-Bar of Retribution doing some very impressive professional wrestling things. And Mustafa Ali, he turns to the commentary table and says, hey lads, have you seen what this man here is capable of doing? And I was thinking, yeah, that's what makes this entire Retribution thing and the way they've largely been booked so far on the main roster so pissing sad indeed. Global pandemic, spitting water into the atmosphere. Confirmed, Triple H wants the entire human race to die. And then waboom, waboom, we have Tom Phillips face fornicating everything in sight. He of course claimed that Triple H's last match in WWE was a year and a half ago when Triple H, he took on Randy Orton. Now first of all, that's a WTF moment, Tom Phillips, because that implies that what Triple H and Randy Orton did last night on Monday Night Raw was a wrestling match. Triple H's next wrestling match after his last wrestling match. But we had it made very clear indeed, it wasn't a wrestling match at all. it was a fight, because they're very different. And second of all, Triple H's last match a year and a half ago was not against Randall Keith, Randall Keith, Randall Keith, and that's because after that match at Super Showdown 2019 against Randall Keith, Triple H had 2 more wrestling matches in the country of Japan. I said that like that. In the first match, he teamed with the Club. Remember, the Club from the WWE days. He teamed with them to take on the team of Big Baldy Bastard Baron Corbin, Big Baldy Bastard Bobby Lashley, Big Beardy Bastard Daddy Drew McIntyre, and Big Boulder Man Samoa Joe. And then in the second match, he teamed with Shinsuke Nakamura to take on the team of Robert Roode and Samoa Joe. So nearly, but not quite, Tom Phillips. And there I thought the Burning Hammer was banned in WWE. But this is what happened in this instance right here. Triple H got his sledgehammer from under the ring. He was going to twat Randy Orton with it, very hard indeed. But off camera, somehow the hammer, it magically got set on fire. Because magic. By the way, the Fiend's sort of lights turning off sequence was happening at this moment, so he did it. And then the lights went out completely, and despite this, the flame just disappeared, because that's what happens when the lights get turned off. If you have a match on, right, inside of a room with the lights on, and you turn the lights off, disappears. But when the lights came back on, this is where Triple H confirmed his name is actually Harry Houdini, because he was nowhere to be seen and he hasn't been heard from since. And Triple H, if you're okay, let me know. I'm worried about you. And there we see a cheek bleeding, and then we cut to later in the same match, and there we see a cheek not there bleeding. And you can't have a good WWE for this, can you? This is just a consequence of airing a pre-tape after some live wrestling, where anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation. Unlucky WWE. And then Alexa Bliss, you've done it now. You've gone and made a big mistake, because you have committed some gimmick infringement, but not just on anybody. You have committed gimmick infringement on Gimmick Infringement Kane, who himself became Gimmick Infringement Kane because he was infringing on other people's gimmicks, which was taking a ball of fire and throwing it at somebody's face. Go on, Kane, do the throw. Hopefully the green screen footage matched what Gimmick Infringement Kane did there. I mean, that's real fire. So basically, how very dare you, Alexa Bliss? But also in this moment, Gimmick Infringement Kane would like to commend Randall Keith's tribute to Biker Grove. Lovely. But that's it, I think, from a very meh, but also a very, oh, that's quite weird, isn't it, episode of Monday Night Raw. Once again, best wishes are with Daddy Drew McIntyre. How Drew? Kick the COVID right in the face, will you, man? Let me know what you think about Monday Night Raw in the comments down below. Tell me how wrong I am. It's my favourite thing about YouTube. I'm never ever right. But I have been Ross Twiddell from Cultaholic Wrestling. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.